Hey there, everybody. It's the top of the hour, and that means you've still got a little bit of time to get yourself some snacks, get something to drink, get all comfy cozy, and share out the link with your friends and family not already in the stream, because 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk will begin in about 2.5 minutes. Welcome to the Virtual Stab Comedy Theater. It's time for 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Please welcome to your screen, 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the show. This is 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. I'm Corey Behringer, joined as always by my co-host, whose brain is squirming like a toad. It's Cord Hansen. How you doing, Cord?
I'm good. I'm the Peace Frog.
Yes. I was torn between a Peace Frog reference and that weird line from Riders on the Storm, and I figure, hey, I got two frog refs. Let's do them both. So, because I knew you would say something about Peace Frog if I referenced that. It was perfectly.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm making all these brilliant references because we're talking about the Doors this week. We're breaking on through parentheses to the other side, I'm really looking forward to this because I think I haven't purposely listened to this band since I was maybe 16 or 17 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be a real big part of my rock and roll intake. They were a very important band, like formative band for me. And I just kind of haven't returned in quite a while. So I think this is going to be a treat for me. What are your thoughts going into this, Cord?
Like you, they were a big classic rock entry point in middle school.
Yeah.
And then when I got into punk stuff, I had to reject them so heavy-handedly. And that negative stigma kind of stuck around until well into adulthood, unfortunately. But going back and preparing for this episode, I listened to some of the old standards, and I was really impressed at how much I like them now.
Yeah. I think as you grow older, you start to appreciate the band behind Jim Morrison. to lose the mystique and the mythology around just Jim Morrison, and then you start to appreciate how phenomenal the players are.
Yeah.
And that has kind of enhanced the listenability for me anyway. But that's enough of just you and me, Gavin. Let's get to our guest, our Sherpa this week on the Mountain of the Doors is Brian Levy. How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing great. What's up, everybody? I'm your boy. I'm straight up.
Mere moments ago, and we've already hit it off like gangbusters.
Yeah.
You know, it's what we do here at 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Let's just talk in very broad terms here. What is it about the Doors that do it for you?
Well, so my thing with the Doors is that they were one of those bands. I feel like this is how it is for many children of boomers, where it's just like one of those bands where your parents played them for you and were just like, yeah, this is great. And you know, it's just sort of in your, you are built up musically with them, right? And then as you get older, you start hearing a bunch of dumb stuff, you know, be like, oh, their songwriting's bad, Jim Morrison was stupid, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's like this thing that was sort of part of your musical DNA begins to sort of wane. And then you can, after that, reevaluate it as an adult. And I find that very interesting. And yeah, it's so formative. There's such a standard of rock and roll music. And they are so specifically dad rock. They are music that dads love. Ooh, that's music for dads right there.
Yeah.
You know?
Because it makes dads feel cool. Because they were such a unabashedly cool band. Like that was what they were, was cool. So you get to live vicariously through that, which is all dads do, is live vicariously. They don't live for themselves.
My dad's still living through me. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. What was the?
Plus, we're talking about dads. We should mention that Jim Morrison's dad did the Gulf of Tonkin incident.
It's true. It's true.
It is true. What were we going to ask?
I was going to ask a pretty basic question, but I'm going to retract that question and instead just go right into the playlist. So what we're going to do, folks, maybe you're tuning in for the first time to 6 o'clock Dad Rock Talk. Brian has provided us with a playlist of some of his favorite Doors jams. Although, actually, no, not all your favorites. Some of them are kind of stupid, right? That's what you sort of. And I'm really looking forward to those. I think that's going to be a hoot. But we don't know what's about to be played until it's played, because Jesse Jones is going to be our DJ for the evening, as he is every evening that we do the show. So Jesse, will you please play the first Doors song for us?
That it would be untrue. You know that I would be a liar if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. The time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Try now, we can only lose, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. Excellent. I seriously love it. I think it's great. Light My Fire is a wonderful song. But the thing is about it, and it is one of those things where I feel like that song particularly has the dichotomy of the Doors, where it is both fantastic, but also super fucking stupid.
Yes.
Where like, so the lyric, like, there are moments of the lyrics that are great. Like, Come On Baby, Light My Fire is a good, like, it just works. It's like, yes. But then, like, rhyming fire with higher is stupid. And also the song goes on for like 9 minutes. That
Yeah.
doesn't need to go on that long. And so it is a, I feel like that song, which as Oliver Stone, kind of brought forward in his dumb Jim Morrison movie. It's sort of, he had it as like the first song that they jammed out in that movie, which, who knows if that's, true or not. But it does very much encapsulate what they did, where it's just like brilliance and stupidity. And that's sort of my thesis on like,
yeah, they're like a fusion of like meathead, like kind of bro-y guy, and then also psychedelic experimental musicians.
It's like when Joe Rogan is accidentally smart.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say, yeah, there's probably a lot of overlap there in terms of Aldous Huxley reading.
Hey, Morrison, you ever do DMT? No, wait, that's for Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
But,
2 peas in a pod. I totally get where you're coming from with that, though, because it is very much, I think, a product of its time too, with that like overindulgence. It wasn't until like my late teens that I found out that there was the non-single version of the song, and I thought I was being pranked. Like, it's like, there's no reason. Same thing with CCR's Susie Q. I had no idea that the like album cut of that is like, I think that one's also like 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
It does not need to be. It doesn't, they're not exploring any new grounds. They aren't like, getting to a higher level. No, it's the same
it's
thing.
just going through it. Maybe a little
Great
variation,
song.
like a doodly. Yeah. What's funny too is that like as an adult, I mean, or even as like a late teen, like I love like prog, like Spencer Krug, who is a member of Wolf Parade, but also does a lot of solo stuff as Moonface, and he had a band called Sunset Rubdown for a long time. Like, he's one of my favorite musicians of all time, and none of his songs are like shorter than like 11 minutes, and like I love that stuff. But this particular song, it just doesn't go anywhere. It's like it's the same measure that they're just going over, and like I appreciate that, but why was it recorded?
They're not progressing.
You're not exactly.
Like, they're not doing anything with it.
No, it's actually quite conservative if you think about it.
Yeah.
But
Let's hear another.
Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She's walking down the street, blind to every eye she meets. Do you think you'll be the guy to make the queen of the angels sigh? Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. Hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name? Hello, I love you, let me jump in your game. She holds her head so high, like a statue in the sky. Her arms all
yeah, I think that's actually probably their best, or maybe not their best song, but one of their most solid, just kind of inarguable songs.
Yeah.
That's sort of how I feel about that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing that's so like really off-putting in the ways that like some people would be put off by the Doors. There's not the very noodly organ, like Ray's not going wild on it.
No.
He does get a little screamy at the end. Jim Morrison gets a little screamy at the end, which is like my favorite part of it. I love when he starts really screaming hello. Like,
That's when Jim Morrison is, I think, the most interesting, is when so when I was a kid, I thought that Jim Morrison came from in like kid logic. I thought that Jim Morrison and the Doors came from a time before rock and roll music because of the quality of his voice. because he sounds sort of like a crooner. He just like has that like,
yeah, absolutely.
you know, he has that quality to his, and I think that's intentional and everything. But then when he screams, it's like, whoa, you're also like jumping ahead like 10 years there, like to almost like a punk kind of like proto, like, you know, it's not, I wouldn't call the Doors a punk band or anything like that, but like, you know, just the idea of like screaming and like getting like weird and like that kind of thing. And you know, he was doing that, and he does that, and it's kind of cool. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I think when you pair that kind of aggression with just, as we were saying, like, you know, inarguable riffs, like just the riffs are so compact, the song is so concise, like it's just such a great combination of elements, really.
Yeah. And also like Ray Manzarek, it's one of the best show. I mean, most of the songs on this playlist are decent showcases of what he was doing on the, you know, the keyboard or organ or harpsichord or whatever he was using. I don't know what equipment he was on, but like the sound on that particular song is so just like, oh, that's the Doors. Like nothing else sounds like Hello, I Love You, which is very exciting to me. And I understand why people like back then were, you know, going nuts for this stuff, because it's just like, this is pop music. It's being sold to us, but also nothing else sounds like this. And it's like it's cool. I don't know. It's great.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, because another thought that I kind of had going into this episode about one thing I do appreciate about the Doors is their interpretation of the blues became in a more wholly original thing than what I think a lot of other white rock musicians did with the blues.
Sure.
You know, you compare what the Stones did, it was pretty much right down the line, just trying to emulate. Jim Morrison and the Doors aren't trying to emulate Delta blues. They're taking it and they're transforming it. And you can, I don't know, I feel like I respect that more.
Yeah.
Whether or not you enjoy it as much as these classic blues musicians, you can't argue that it's not trying to mimic it, you know, and I think that's pretty great. Let's hear another. Oh.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, now touch me, babe. Can't you see that I am not afraid? What was that promise that you made? Why won't you tell me what she said? What was that promise that you made? Now I'm gonna love you till the heavens stop the rain. I'm gonna love you till the stars fall from the sky for you and I.
That's another one of their songs that just like, it brings a smile to my face, where it's just like, that is a tasty song, you know. It just works. And something that I was researching this song because I think it is my personal favorite Doors song. I may have said that for another one, but this is the one. Yeah. Jim Morrison didn't write it. That was this is a Robbie Krieger. Krieger, I don't know how to pronounce it. I never heard it out loud. But it's the guitarist wrote this one. And yeah, I think it's basically a perfect song.
Yeah.
It's evocative. It's musically it's so cool.
When I first
know.
heard it as a kid, I didn't really realize it was the Doors. I thought it was, like you said, some sort of like Sinatra crooner type song with maybe a little more energy. But I thought it was old, like predated rock and roll stuff as well. And now listening to it, I was looking at it. The song came out in '68, and so there's a lot of very 1968 style flourishes, like orchestral flourishes on the song. And I don't think people think of the Doors in that context very often, of almost like not like Baroque pop in the style of the Beach Boys, but incorporating outside intro. I don't know. It has kind of a Phil Spector-y feel to it. It's just very, very cool.
Yeah,
and it's just a huge horn section. It's cinematic. I don't think you think about the Doors in like an original soundtrack cinematic sort of way. Meaning, what it actually reminds me of, even though it's very much also of its time, it feels like in like the early 70s, well, kind of through the 70s, when you'd have these studio films have like the song of the movie, and they would have contemporary famous artists do that. This feels like it would have been in a movie in the 70s, but like as the song of it.
Sure.
It just, I don't know, it has that big sort of Glenn Campbell feel of just like just so saccharine, but in the best way. I adore it. And it's cool you mentioned that the guitarist wrote it, because the only other song that I know of his that was a composition was Come On Baby Light My Fire, which is like very different as far as just the quality of lyrics, I think. So it's cool to see him progress, because I feel like this was after, right? I mean, I don't know my Doors timing very well.
Yeah, this is
a couple years in.
Production-wise, it feels like way farther ahead than Light My Fire. Yeah, cool song.
Both songs aren't really guitar-heavy songs, too, which is interesting.
It's like he took a back seat and allowed himself to compose it, but then which is neat.
He knew what the song needed. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh no.
I wanted to say one thing is that the lyrics of the chorus, I always like to this day. I mean, when you're a kid and you hear this stuff on like classic rock radio that your dad's listening to, it's like, ooh, it's time for dad. Whatever. When you're a kid and you're listening to these things, it's one thing. But when you're an adult, you're maybe connecting with it a little less because you just have other things to think about. But I still think that just the chorus of just like, I'm going to love you till the stars fall from the sky is still it's just like interesting. It's just like, that's cool. That's like a conception of like time. And I mean, I'm sounding like a bit of a groovy guy myself right now, but it does. It's just like, it's cool. I mean, everything. I mean, that's basically the crux of everything I'm going to say about them, is that a lot of the things that they bring up in their songs are just cool. Like the idea of like, ooh, until time stops and like the world starts falling apart. That's how much I love you. Like that's
very
cool.
apocalyptic too.
It is. It's a little scary.
The heaven stops the rain. Like,
what does that even mean? Probably nothing. It
sounds like a problem. It sounds like something.
Drought and famine.
Yes, bringing me back to Hebrew school. Oh, shalom. Yeah.
Let's hear another song.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end.
So you're getting like Jim Morrison on that one, which I find funny. But I also find it a little funny that that's on their first big album. Like that's on The Doors. That's the last. That's a concluding song on the same. It's fun that they introduce themselves also with The End, which is such like a dark, controversial song.
Yes, it is.
Incredibly, yeah.
It's such a cool song too.
Yeah.
The way it builds up like that is so neat. The fact that Jim Morrison's dad did the Gulf of Tonkin incident makes the use of this song in Apocalypse Now even more interesting.
Yes.
I can't help but wonder if it's intentional. Francis Ford Coppola is a crazy madman, so I wouldn't put it past him to do something like that. But it's just such a creepy end of the world song. It sounds like it sounds like Jim Morrison's version of the end of the world, just what he anticipates it will look and sound like and feel like. You ride the snake to the lake.
What's funny too is that so I agree with all of that and have been thinking about a lot of that stuff, not necessarily the Coppola Gulf, because I've noted a coworker of mine, another librarian, actually told me about the Jim Morrison dad Gulf of Tonkin thing like a couple of days ago. So that's actually somewhat news-ish to me. Just a lot of a lot of the good stuff in that song is very apparent, but also Ride the Snake to the Lake is one of the dumbest possible rhymes. So dumb, but also
I think that's what bothers me about a line like that is it feels like they had a book open and they're like, what rhymes with lake? How about snake?
Exactly. That's exactly. Yes. I was actually trying to make a fake. I was one of my plans for when the show was going to start was to write a fake Jim Morrison piece of poetry. but I realized that no rhyme was dumber than snake and lake. But The End does rule. It's great. It's good stuff. I don't know. And it's interesting too, because it's pre-Manson, but also gets into weird killings and stuff, with where he's walking through the house and he kills his whole family and stuff. One of my big things about the Doors is that I think that they reveal a lot about the darkness of the 60s before the 60s even knew how dark the 60s were.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And I think this particular song is great with that. Where it's just
they're dealing in some dark Manson and Altamont style energy.
Yes.
But those things haven't happened yet.
Right. Yeah. And it's just that energy of that counterculture where it's just obviously everyone's having fun. Everyone's doing a bunch of psychedelics. Everyone's being in the counterculture. There's also just a great, not that the counterculture itself was evil, but there was evil in it. There were bad people involved. Yeah. And there was bad energy.
For that, it drew those people to it because it was so liberated. It's just how could evil people not be drawn to that?
Right, right.
Digging for it to happen.
Yeah, and the song just does such a wonderful job, just highlighting the darkness of the time. This is a time that none of us were even alive for, but I feel it does such a good job. It's such it's a good piece of art. It's a really, really good piece of art because it sort of reverberates throughout time where it's you listen to that song and you understand where they were at immediately. You know exactly what they were thinking, trying to bone your mom. What's up with that? But
Yeah.
Let's hear another song.
People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down. When you're strange, faces come out of the rain. When you're strange, no one remembers is your name? When you're strange, when you're strange, when you're strange. People are strange when you're a stranger. Faces look ugly when you're alone. Women seem wicked when you're unwanted. Streets are uneven when you're down.
So that's from the second big album, right? I forget what it's called.
Strange Days.
Yes,
Strange Days,
Strange Days with all the carnival people on the cover.
Big guy and a little guy.
Now you got to have them both, a big boy and a little boy
You know that
to
one
carry
is
around.
little and one is big. Otherwise, you would have no idea.
Exactly.
No context.
It's
no
very
context.
important. But yeah, it's funny. So I was reading this one article written by this. I forget if it was on it was on some Jezebel or something or other, about bands I pretended to like to make boys like me. And this woman recounted the story of making out with some guy in high school where he cited People Are Strange, and then he was just like, Jim Morrison was the most underrated poet of the 1960s. And then she's like, yeah, well, whatever. I'll just still make out with this guy. No big deal. And it's funny because it's the lyrics of People Are Strange are fairly stupid. It's in that dumb. I feel like it's more stupid than good, but yet the music and the way that the lyrics work with the music is brilliant. It's just it's despite the dumbness and the weird kind of misogynist men's rights activist kind of just oh, no one likes me, I'm just a guy, but why won't these girls want to suck my dick, dude? There's that part of it. Right, exactly.
That's what it is. I'm so weird. And they don't understand me.
I'm a very dark man, and no one knows that about me, but I'm a very dark man. There's that part of it, but at the same time, it's a brilliant, beautiful, it's such a good piece of rock music. It's good.
And we were talking about the kind of the dark hangover of the 60s with regards to the end. And a cover of this song is used in the opening credits of The Lost Boys, the teen vampire flick from the 80s, set in sort of Santa Cruz.
Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah, exactly.
Is
And
that the Echo and the Bunnymen cover? Is that their
maybe
cover?
it might be. But one thing on a recent rewatch of that movie that I noticed is that all of the authority figures and the adults in that movie are inattentive, burnt out former hippies. And that there's just become this hollowing out of that 60s ideal that allows these vampires kind of free reign to prey on it because they know no one's paying attention because everyone's parents are former acid freaks and stuff. And there's a lot more of that than I remembered in the movie. And then on another level, there's a big Jim Morrison tapestry on the wall in the Vampire's Fortress, in a rundown hotel. There's a big Jim Morrison thing.
Wow.
And even though that movie's pretty schlocky, I really like it, but it's not a spectacular movie. I do think that it does something interesting by having all of the adults in the movie be former flower children.
Yes.
It just kind of, in having it being set in the 80s during the Reagan years when all of that stuff transmogrified into just horrible neoliberal hell. I just think that that's a weirdly interesting thing that a kind of stupid movie plays around with.
Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I never picked up on that. I've only seen the movie maybe twice in my life. And I was definitely too young to have picked up on any of that.
Yeah.
I
mean, that also speaks to just I feel like when you're so I was listening to a lot of in preparation for this. I was listening to a bunch of Jim Morrison interviews, and I feel like he was just like his lyrics were stupid, and he himself was a big dumb misogynist. Like he was a dumb rock and roll guy, and whatever. But like, I think he was a lot smarter and a lot more prescient than I think a lot of people give him credit for. A lot of like naysayers give him credit for. Like he was talking about like workers' movements. He was talking about like he was a funny dude. I don't know. Like I think that there's something to be said like sort of about that, like Lost Boys sort of just like, oh, parents like were listening to him but like real kind of weren't listening to him, like sort of thing. Which just like rings true for I think most culture, where it's like I don't think that Jim Morrison was some kind of like messiah figure, or he was just a guy, but I think he was a lot smarter than a lot of people gave him credit for, and a lot of people who love the music of the Doors and maybe thought that they internalized what they were talking about kind of actually didn't, or if they did, they threw it away right when a decent paycheck came their way. And not that the Doors were ever also schlubbing it. They were not like a working class band. Like they were doing pretty well for themselves the whole time. But yeah, I there is just that weird like disconnect where it's just like, no, these guys like actually knew what was going on.
Yeah, if you're willing to give him like a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and not just approach him from like a pitchfork.com like angle of just like making fun of the things that are old that people like,
right?
I think that there's a lot of like richness in the music and in the lyrics, even in some of the dumber lyrics, to kind of take a little more seriously and think about the context that those songs came out of too, the time period, and where music was as well. And I think the overexposure of Jim Morrison as like an ideal or as a character has led to people kind of misunderstanding what made the band very cool, and I think pretty forward thinking artistically back in the day.
Yeah, I think much in the same way that you have with acts like Janis Joplin, where the mythology of them tends to overshadow who they really were and what they were actually bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Good art, really. They were just bringing us good art.
Yeah.
Let's hear another. So for LA Woman, I want to just preamble this by saying that, or preface this, that I think LA Woman is probably their best album, like just like musically, just in my opinion. I just think that it's just like this is a band that's clearly working together, and they're having fun, they're creating a decent product. But also Jim Morrison is like comically drunk in this song.
Yeah.
I've never heard a man recorded that drunk. Just his alcohol, like that he died a year later from alcohol problems. It's just like, that's a drunk guy right there. Like he's had a few.
Like Homer Simpson. It sounds like Homer getting drunk.
A little bit, yeah.
Trying to sing LA Woman.
So what it sounds like is Will Ferrell doing a Jim Morrison impression.
Yeah.
like anybody. It's good stuff. But LA Woman's great. It's like I don't know. I was reading an interview about like how they came up with that stuff, and it was basically, as it sounds like, impromptu lyric writing, where he was just kind of spitting stuff out that he had sort of prepared, but like, you know, it was in his notebook, but he was just kind of, you know, saying whatever he felt like saying. And also he was recording it inside of a bathroom, which he had like a toilet section that he was sitting on in the studio that they had a mic in that he was singing into. So he was sitting on a turlet, and they were, you know, jamming out. But I don't know. It does make me a bit sad that they didn't get to keep kind of going in this direction where it was like a little less keyboard, like heavy, and a little just more like there's just a bunch of rockin' dudes.
Yeah, like bar rock.
Yeah, very bar rock. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This song in particular reminds me of the Pigpen era of the Grateful Dead, when they would do a lot of like drawn out blues covers that would get kind of experimental and weird. And Pigpen and Morrison had very similar singing styles, and musically the bands, it's interesting that they didn't cross over more into one another's like sphere of musical influence. But I guess that there was a pretty sizable divide between the Bay Area bands and some of the LA bands that just like didn't like the LA people. And I believe that the Doors were a part of that. Maybe because they got snubbed on being invited to the Monterey Pop Festival. But anyway, this song in particular sounds like a Grateful Dead jam, in that it has kind of the organ mixing with the more experimental, weird bluesy stuff. And yeah, I don't think that similarity gets pointed out enough, that they both have a kind of that their mid to late 60s phase, it very much a lot of musical overlap. I don't know what my larger point is. It's just interesting to me.
Well, something that
I've never thought about that before, and it's totally true. Like I've that's never occurred to me. So I get that. What were you gonna say, Brian?
I was just hearing that, like, I heard some like Allman Brothers, or like not Allman Doobie Brothers, like with there's like there's a noodly aspect to that music where it's just like, well, they were riding like a little early 70s wave there, and it's just, I don't know, that was their last piece of music, and it happens to be like pretty coherent.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, they knew what they were doing. They're not like a bunch of dummies. Like, I don't know. They're good musicians, and it makes me happy to listen to them.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, you mentioned that, you know, it's a shame that they didn't progress in that sort of, train of thought. And that kind of makes me bring up, I have noticed that you didn't put any post Jim Morrison Doors. So
no,
far.
I didn't.
Are there any on that we have to listen to? Confession, I've never heard any of the post Morrison Doors albums. In fact, I don't know anyone who has.
I have. I had the album Full Circle as a kid, and I don't really remember much about that. But the one that came out shortly after Morrison died, and it was songs that they were working on with him. It's called Other Voices. It's not bad. It's just clearly it's kind of like the first New Order album, where they're trying to they haven't become a new thing, and so they're trying to fill a void. But it's not bad. It's the same guys, it's the same musicians. They're just lacking the kind of momentum that Morrison's vocals brought them. But it's not the worst thing you've ever. Some people write those off as just like pure cash-in garbage, but not really. I mean, it's literally called Other Voices. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
and it has the three of them on the cover. There's no pretense that this is like the Jim Morrison Doors anymore. It's a different band, and it's go on.
Are there vocals?
Yeah, I think that.
Is it Ray?
I think he takes most of the leads. I think it's split between him and maybe Robbie Krieger. And it's not bad. It's just different, and it's kind of, you're getting a glimpse at where they were headed. There's a song called "I'm Horny, I'm Stoned" that's really funny.
Hell yeah.
I gotta look that up. That sounds great.
Yeah,
That sounds like my lifestyle, dude.
Hello.
You know I'm about that life.
But it's not that bad. It's just underwhelming given the circumstances.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's perfectly whelming given the circumstances.
Exactly. Tough act to follow. Like I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard.
Let's hear another song.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there, but can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
So, break on through to the other side is it's such like I don't know, nothing else sounds like that. Like I don't think that there's another song on this planet unless it's absolutely just trying to be the Doors. Like they created a new sound, which is, especially in that time where a lot of bands were basically just doing the same exact thing over and over and over again, and just iterating on the same stuff that was happening. Like, that is a unique piece of music. And I just want to say, before we discuss this, that my mom always had this this story that she would say about this song, where so my mom used to drink a lot of wine and have like a huge drinking problem, and it was like a whole problem at dinner and stuff. And we just be like, "Mom, stop drinking." You know, it would be one of those. And one of her stories that she would say when she was drinking a bit too much wine is that, and we, like, my brother and I were too young to be hearing this, but she would always claim, it's like, she'd be like, you know, the Doors, they were always saying, you know, that part where she says she get on the radio, they were always saying she give head. That's what they're really saying. And that's what she tried to tell me and my little brother, is that the Doors are trying to sing about blowjobs. And what's funny about it is it's just not true. It's what, and we my brother and I, we uncovered the truth of this. We learned that the secret was that some dumb cover band in her hometown in New Hampshire, they would play the song as "She Give Head" at the end of the song. The true lyric is "She Get High," which, you know, I'm all about. Just kidding. I don't touch that stuff. But yeah, my mom was convinced because of some cover band that the radio was letting on salacious lyrics, and she was telling us a little bit too much for a mommy to talk about.
Definitely. And I think it's so interesting that I thought I knew where you were going with that, and I was wrong, obviously, but
yes,
very close. I thought that you were going to tell us that she was telling you the anecdote of, I don't remember which song it was, though, where Jim Morrison got a blowjob while he was recording it.
It's on the playlist, actually. Yeah.
I thought that's what you were getting at. Like, still
that's
a
different one.
Story, though. Cool.
but see, that's the other dark side of the Doors, where it's like, we can talk about how good they are musically, but then at the end of the day, it is sort of just a blowjob story. You know, like, that is sort of what I feel Jim Morrison was about, mostly. he had a lot of lofty designs, but he was just trying to get them blowies. It was,
There's like several scenes in the Oliver Stone movie to that effect, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
High school, yeah.
Actually, funny story about Oliver Stone. Now, Court, I think you may know this, but maybe not. So Val Kilmer plays Jim Morrison in the Doors movie. I yelled at Val Kilmer's son at Coachella. I yelled at him. He was a bad boy. So my brother made very fast friends with Val Kilmer's son, Jack.
The one from Lords of Chaos.
Yes, exactly. He made friends with him at some ocean camp that they went to on Catalina Island in off the coast of LA. There was some camp that they both went to, and they were good friends. And when I was, oh boy, I mean, I think I was like 20 years old. I had to chaperone both of them to Coachella one year, and Val Kilmer's son was a bad boy and a little shitty guy. He was putting my brother down to the, bringing him down to the depths of celebrity depravity, and I had to get home early. Like, I had to leave Coachella early, and this was the year that Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre were playing. And I was just like, you guys, you got to skip it because I got to get home. And I'm driving you guys. Please let me get home. And they were just like, fuck you, old man. And I was like 20 and they were like 17. But they're like, yeah, we hate you. We're bad. We're bad now. And and so then I didn't get to leave Coachella until 2 a.m. And the entire way through, I just yelled at Val Kilmer's bad son. And that's my story about the Doors movie.
I don't even want to talk about this song now. How do we top that story?
Sorry.
No, there was something I wanted to talk about this song real quick. Is the use of the quiet loud dynamics that gets talked about a lot in a lot of rock bands. Pixies, obviously, that's the one everyone goes to. But I feel like it's used so well here because you have that like low brooding kind of riff, and then that explosion of a break on through, and then once it stops because it's so quick, it's such a quick burst, you get to like rest in it for a moment, and I really appreciate that, where you get to like, whoa, what just happened?
Yeah.
It doesn't just assault you with it the entire time. It calms down,
When the guitar comes in and it merges with the organ line, and the guitar's like, it's so good.
It's excellent.
Because the riff by itself, I don't think people could place it as the riff from this song. If you were to just show them that part, they'd be like, I don't think they'd be able to identify it. But the second it's overlaid on top of that organ, it just sounds so cool. It's so perfect.
There's also something to be said about the drums in this song. I forget the name of the drummer, so
Densmore.
Thank you, Densmore. Like that sort of like bossa nova sort of like, I wouldn't call it is it syncopated? Whatever, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like everything mixes together so well for such a cool sound that just like it's unmatched. It just, I mean, not in necessarily quality. I'm sure there's a billion better songs than Break On Through, parentheses, To the Other Side, end parentheses. But like nothing sounds like that.
Yeah.
It's so singular.
And there's so much energy to it as well that it sounds ahead of its time and past its time and of its time all at the same time.
It's just good art. It like the Doors, dumb as they are good art,
Yeah.
Like much art.
Exactly. Thank you. Because most art is dumb. Like, if you just think about like, why am I looking at this painting right now? Like, it's dumb. It's dumb that someone did it, but I'm glad they did it. Let's hear another song. Oh, actually, hold on. We got time for one more. Is there one we didn't get to that you want to hear, Brian?
Oh my goodness! Actually, yeah. So we've talked a lot about the good stuff. Should we talk about a good one or a dumb one? What do you guys think?
My vote says go out on dumb, but
Me too.
Okay, well then Alabama song parentheses
Yeah.
whiskey bar.
love this song. All right, go on. Let's hear that.
Well, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die. Oh, moon of Alabama, now must say goodbye.
I mean, that's where it's all like, you kind of fuck these guys a little bit, you know? They're dumb. They make dumb music, but also the late 60s were a dumb time for music. You know, there's a wonderful music that came through, but like a lot of it just was that, you know, just fucking circus music.
Yeah.
Maybe because I have a really soft spot for like cabaret, and because this is like Irving Berlin, you know, this is like, I don't know. This is the one time I will disagree with you on this episode. I don't think this is dumb at all. I think this is very cool.
My
love this song.
take is that I think the song perfectly encapsulates a night where you're out with your friends and people are starting to want to like pack it in and go home, but there's enough people in the group who are like, no, let's soldier on. Let's go to the next bar. Let's go to the next club. And things just start to get like
Scary.
not necessarily scary, but just like you start to be in a bad mood because you're sobering up and
Two boys too drunk, you know?
right. And this song perfectly captures that feeling, I think, where it's like, don't ask why. We're just gonna go. If we don't just I think that Matt Bronger has a old stand-up joke about how Jim Morrison's personality is like the drunk guy that you're taking to get Burger King, and he's just a blackout drunk. And it does kind of have that feel of, it's like, why, Jim, why do we have to go to the next whiskey bar? I'm tired. I have class tomorrow.
Oh,
It's like,
don't
if
ask
we don't
why.
go, I will die. We all must die if I don't go to the next whiskey bar.
Yeah. No, so I think the first part of the song is very tolerable. The second part where he's talking about show me the way to the next little girl, that's where it's just like, buddy, I don't know.
Yeah, they're not
about
going to
that.
be at the whiskey bar.
No, they're not. It's just gonna be a bunch of like 40-year-old dudes. Like but yeah, there's a fun thing where Jim Morrison, I don't know what it is about his singing affectation. He can't say girl without saying girl. And so he always goes like a little girl.
The
like
Lizard King talking.
Yes, I mean that's that Lizard King popping out. You know he's popping off. And I just find it very funny. It's a very funny song, and not necessarily bad. Like it's not bad, but it is stupid. Like it does encapsulate a stupid way of being. You know, it's a stupid emotion that they're getting, and they nail it musically. So it's not like bad, but but it is stupid. You know what I mean? and hence the name of the playlist, The Doors, Good and Stupid. You know, not good and bad, but they are dumb.
No arguments there. Well, Brian, this is a hoot and a half. Thank you so much for being on the show. Is there
thanks
anything
for having
like
me.
to plug before we leave? Any like you got sort of like the radio thing, right?
Yeah, so Instagram.com / or just at radio_free_Brian, Radio Free Brian, which is a pun on Radio Free Brooklyn, which is an independent radio station in whatever. Go to that. Also, I've got animations that I've been working on at It's Me, Brian Levy. And then finally, I've been updating the website of my sketch group, the Pepperoni Zone, at www.pepperoni.zone. So for all your pepperoni needs, just head on to that website. I pay for it. You better visit it.
Make it worth it for him, folks.
Thank you.
Check out the Pepperoni Zone. We're so happy you joined us this week. This was a delight for me as well as Court. I'm sure.
It was fun.
I'll speak for him. We hope you at home enjoyed it as well. Please join us next week. I don't know what the topic will be, but it'll be good, I bet. Follow us.
Oh,
at
no, we know
Jack-
it. Is next week the first? Is next week the first?
I don't think so. Is it? Or it might be. I don't
It is. Next Thursday is the
yeah,
first
so
of April.
next week we're talking Jackson Brown with Jackson Brown.
That's going to be great.
Damn,
yeah.
you got Jackson Brown on this?
We got a Jackson Brown.
We got a much funnier Jackson Brown, to put it that way.
Yeah.
Less successful, much funnier.
Great get.
Yeah, I'd say so. So, yeah, check that out, folks. Same time next week. And have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you guys one more time, as usual. Thank you, Corey, Court, Brian. Lots of fun. That's it for Dad Rockin'. But in pretty much exactly an hour, we've got the next show for you. It's the Stab Show. It's the one where we sort of named the theater. You know what? We don't have to get into the history. Just know that we'll be here in an hour, 8 o'clock, straight up top of the next hour, for the Stab Show with Rhoda Ramone, Jason Weitzel, Melanie Ford. It's a fun lineup. We will see you guys, hopefully, in an hour. Good night, everybody. Oh, but come back. But good night. Oh, I don't know. See you in an hour.